Hi everyone. Today I'm talking about misogyny and tolerance, and more specifically Jacob Rees Mogg, the Member of Parliament in the UK who was recently in the news for saying he was completely against abortion and gay marriage. Before this news story, I was somewhat of a fan of Jacob Rees Mogg. He was one of the most sort of charming and sincere, polite, easy to listen to politicians in the UK. And he wasn't even that famous. It was pretty not very well known. I should mention he was a Conservative MP. He is still a Conservative MP for, I believe it's North Somerset or South Somerset, but I know some of my new subscribers are American, so I'll try to make this easy to understand for people who aren't familiar with Jacob Rees Mogg before. But he's a pretty interesting guy, and I think you should watch some clips with him, because he's kind of unlike any other politician I've ever seen in how just generally likeable he is. You'd really, I think it's really hard to hate him, or at least I thought it was pretty hard to hate him, but now a lot of people hate him based on his stance. So what I wanted to go over was why I do not think being pro-life or anti-abortion is a misogynistic stance necessarily. Why being pro-life or being a Catholic should not stop people from being members of Parliament or holding ministerial positions in the government, or any government really. And I wanted to talk a little bit about integrity of politicians. So first up, being pro-life I do not think is necessarily misogynistic. I think, especially for Catholics, the issue is one of the human soul. I'm not a Catholic, so I might not get everything right here, but Jacob Rees Mogg, in the interview where he sort of came out as being pro-life, he explained that his views were based on the teachings of the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church's official position at the moment is that a human life begins at conception, and therefore a 1-day-old or 1-hour-old fetus is still a full human being, and therefore sacred, and it has a soul, and to kill it is murder, which is pretty heavy stuff. I think if you believe that a 1-day-old fetus is a human being and it has a soul, and you believe in a human soul, then I think it naturally follows that abortions are not something you'd be in favour of, even in the case of a rape, where the woman was raped and doesn't want the baby. You still have to consider that Jacob Rees Mogg and other Catholics and a lot of pro-life activists believe that it is a full human being. And I think I don't know how it would be possible, but I think if men could carry children, carry a fetus in their body for 9 months and give birth to it, I think the position would be exactly the same. The position of Catholics and pro-life activists would be exactly the same. It has nothing to do with women or thinking that women should be forced to fulfill the consequences of their having sex with people they don't want to have a baby with. I can see why people might think that, and I can see why people are, especially people who've had abortions, I can understand why they'd be very upset about being called a murderer. But all the same, I think it's actually fairly important to point out that women tend to be more pro-life than men, which isn't to say that there are more women who approve of banning abortion in every single case, but in a study which I'll link below, if I remember, more women than men believe in reducing the limit of, the maximum time at which a baby can be aborted, a fetus I should say. Women believe in reducing that limit, and men tend to approve of increasing the limit, making more mature babies, fetuses, eligible for abortions. So to say that it's a misogynistic issue or that it's a women's right issue is to miss the whole point of the other side of the argument, I think. Because obviously if you think a fetus is nothing but cells, like fingernails or dead skin, then of course you're going to think it's a women's right issue. But you have to consider that the people who believe that the fetus is a baby are talking about a human life being murdered, and an unbaptized baby going to that will go to limbo and for eternity. I'm not too familiar with the Catholic religion, but I believe that unbaptized children go to limbo. I think that's right. My second point is that regardless of your opinions about abortion and the status of a fetus as a person or as not a person, I don't think that should impact whether or not you're allowed to be a member of parliament or the Prime Minister or any kind of or anything really. I don't think it really matters as long as you're not an abortion doctor or some job where abortions are part of your day-to-day work. I don't think that someone's personal views about abortion should be an issue at all. Jacob Rees Mogg did not state that he wants to reduce the number of abortions in the UK. He hasn't taken any steps to change the legislation on, change the law on abortions at all. He's not really interested in it as an issue. He only talked about it at all because he was asked directly what his opinion was, because he's a Catholic, and actually it came up fairly recently with the Prime Minister candidate Tim Farron, who's the leader of the Liberal Democrats, who was, I don't know what kind of Christian he was, but he supposedly lost favour with some of his voters by being more Christian than they would have liked, or being more devoutly Christian, and I think maybe it was his stances on homosexuality or something like that. I should also say that I forgot to mention Jacob Rees Mogg was also, in that same interview, he expressed some unfavourable opinions about gay marriage and homosexuality, but I don't really want to talk about that because that's not so much my area of expertise or interest. I'm more interested in feminism and women's rights, so that's what I'm covering, but that is sort of half of the story in itself. But as I was saying, I don't think being a Catholic should exclude anyone from being Prime Minister or an MP, Member of Parliament. Jacob Rees Mogg is a big believer in democracy, or he claims to be. So I think the most important thing to him is what the general public agree. Not that he's a populist, as some people say, but I think he wouldn't want to. Not that he doesn't even have the power. Even if he was Prime Minister, it's not in his power to change the law on abortion. That's decided a different way. That's not in the Prime Minister's power. But I think he's talked a few times about the British public's choice in certain matters. So I think he would be more willing to go with the mass opinion of his constituents, and if he was Prime Minister, it would be the British population. And my third point on this matter is that I'm really impressed that he was honest about his opinions, given how he must have known that there would be this huge backlash against him. He knew that people would call him a misogynist and say that he hates women and doesn't care about women. He doesn't care about half of the population. He doesn't care about homosexuals and gay marriage. They're going to call him old-fashioned and typical conservative behaviour. But he said it anyway. He didn't hold back. He was a little bit apologetic, but he didn't try to sugarcoat his beliefs. He just stated plainly what he believed and why, and he didn't try to shy away from it. And I think that's a really admirable quality in a politician, is to be honest. And I think being an honest politician is far more important than being a pro-choice, abortion celebrating politician. Especially, as I say, since it's not in his power to make changes to the law anyway. Thank you for watching, and please leave any comments if you have anything to say. Thank you.